I'm just going to go over the two classwork problems from yesterday. So hopefully the videos and the notes help you. You should have been looking at them both to help you answer these two questions. So here's our first one. Remember, we're looking at these patterns questions with mixed numbers or with fractions. And we have to remember everything that we know about adding and subtracting fractions to go ahead and do these problems. Okay, so remember the first thing we're going to have to do is find the rule, right? So finding the rule, finding the rule for us, that's what we need to do first. So remember, we're going to start by looking from left to right to see if our numbers are increasing or decreasing. And in this case, I'm noticing that we're starting with a mixed number, so it has a whole number in front. The next number is a fraction without a number in front of it. So that means we're getting smaller, right? One whole and then 1/12 together is definitely larger than 5/6. So I know the first part of my rule is going to be subtraction, right? Because it is decreasing. So I'm just going to put sub there for subtraction. And remember, the second part to the rule is taking any two numbers that are next to each other. In the previous videos, I took the first two numbers. In this case, I'm just going to show you that it's the same. I'm going to take the last two numbers here, and these are the ones that I'm going to go ahead and find the difference, okay? And remember, finding the difference means I'm going to subtract, but I could go ahead and put the larger one on top. Now, again, because I know, or because we looked at what's happening from left to right, we know the bigger numbers are on the left side and the smaller numbers, the bigger numbers on the left side, the smaller numbers on the right side. So that means when I go to do this subtraction problem where I'm finding the difference, I'm finding how far apart they are from each other, I know that 1/3 is bigger than 1/12 because again, over here we're saying the biggest ones are on the left side and the smallest ones are on the right side, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and subtract, or again, find the difference, right? So that's how far apart those two numbers are from each other. So I'm going to take 1/3. That's going to go on top for me because I get to choose my order when we find the difference. So I'll do it right here, 1/3, and I'm going to subtract 1/12 from it. So we should again know we need common denominators to do that. And if again you still need help doing that, please refer back to the videos for adding and subtracting fractions. I know my denominator is going to be 12, so I know that my bottom number will stay as 1/12 because it is already in 12ths. Then the top one here, the 1/3, I don't know why these lines keep coming in. Oh, sorry, guys. So my top one here, 3 times 4 is 12. So that means I have to multiply 1 by 4, right, to get my numerator. So now that I have the same denominator for them here, I can go ahead and subtract. 4/12 minus 1/12 is 3/12. So that's the number that's going with the rule. So again, we found the operation, which was either add or subtract, by looking from left to right to see if they're getting bigger or smaller. In this case, the numbers are getting smaller, so that's how we got subtract. And then to find the number that went along with it, we subtracted any two numbers that are next to each other. So I chose 1/3 and 1/12. They are next to each other, and my work is over here on this right-hand side to show that subtraction. So now that we found the rule, that's not the whole problem here, right? So it asks us to find a rule and then fill in the unknown term, that means number, for that sequence. So I'm just going to go over here and erase so I can have more space to do work. So now all we're going to do is apply or do the rule, subtract 3/12. We're going to do that to the number that comes before the blank. So we're looking for this here, right? This number in the sequence here. So that means I'm going to go ahead and do the rule to 5/6 because that number comes before that blank. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rule, which is subtract 3/12 from 5/6. So I'll do the work over here again. So I have 5/6. I'm going to subtract 3/12. And again, we need common denominators. I know my common denominator is going to be 12. Okay, again, it's nice for the bottom one. 6 times 2 is 12, so 5 times 2 will give me that numerator over here. So I'm going to take 10/12 and I'm going to subtract 3/12 from it, which is 7/12. And that's going to be this number that is in the blank here. Okay, so my final answer, I have two pieces to this one. It's asking for the rule, which we already found first. We needed to find before we could go ahead and fill in the missing number here. So our missing number then is 7/12. So that's our first problem. Let's take a look at the second problem that was in your work yesterday. So here is the second one that you were given, okay? So we had 3/10, 2/5, a blank, which we're going to find what's in that blank there, and then 3/5, and then so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did for the last problem. We're going to go ahead and find our rule first. So remember, we're looking like we read a book from left to right to see if they are increasing or decreasing. Now, one thing that might be difficult to look at and see is that 3/10 and 2/5, they don't have the same denominator, so it's hard to compare them. But we can compare the first number, right? So our 3/10, we can look at that one and look at 7/10. So that means if we're moving from left to right, we started there and we're ending at 7/10. It's getting larger, right? 7/10 is larger than 3/10. So that tells us that the operation that goes with our rule is going to be addition. Okay, so I'm just going to put add here for part of our rule. There's add, and remember there's a number that goes with our rule also. So I'm going to go ahead and find the number, and remember to find the number that goes with our rule, we're going to take any two numbers that are in our sequence and we're going to find the difference, right? Again, finding the difference, I'm going to use these two here. Finding the difference is subtraction in operation, but it lets us put the larger number on top because we're really finding out how far apart they are from each other, okay? So I know, because we know that it's going from left to right, that it's getting bigger. So I know that 2/5 is going to be larger, right? Because that means the smaller ones are on the left side and the bigger ones are on the right side. So that means if I want the larger one or the bigger one of these two numbers on top, 2/5 is going to be the larger one. And I'm going to subtract 3/10 from it. Okay, so again, we need common denominators. I can look and see that it's 10. And remember, you can always refer back to the other videos on adding and subtracting fractions to make sure you know how to find those common denominators. So we're using 10 as our common denominator, and 5 times 2 is how we get to 10. So I also have to multiply the numerator by 2 when I make this equivalent fraction. So when I take a look at them now, I have 4/10 and 3/10. I can easily do that subtraction. 4 minus 3 is 1, and the denominator stays the same. So remember, this is for our rule still, right? We didn't figure out our rule. So our rule is going to be add 1/10, okay? Let me erase this up here. And then all we're going to do now is we're going to apply or do what the rule says to the number before the blank. So that's 2/5, right? We're going to go ahead and add 1/10 to 2/5 because that's our rule. That's going to go ahead and give us this missing number right in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and erase this work over here on the side so that I can do that new work, applying that rule so we can find our missing number. So here we're going to have, we're going to have 2/5, and we are going to add 1/10 to that because that's what our rule is telling us to do, right? Our rule is saying add 1/10, and we're doing that to the number that comes before the blank, okay? So here again, we need common denominators. I'm I know it is 10 again that I'm going to use, which is nice for my 1/10. Here's 5 times 2, 2 times 2. Again, if you notice, it's the same from before because we used 2/5. So now I can add, because that's what our rule says, we're adding. 4 plus 1 is 5/10. So we can go ahead and put 5/10. Oh, we can go ahead and put 5/10 in here. Sorry, it's a little bit sloppy. Again, this question does not say you have to simplify. So this answer is a correct answer, this 5/10 being the missing number and our rule being add 1/10. If it did say simplest form, then 5/10, hopefully most of you realize that 5/10 is 1/2. So if it says you have to make it in simplest form, it is 1/2. So hopefully you guys did pretty well with these two questions. Please refer back to the video as many times as you need to make sure that you're understanding and doing the questions correctly. All right, good luck.